Yo, what's up, guys? It's KB. Thanks for tuning in to another video here on the Outside the Box Podcast YouTube channel. If you like the content you're seeing from us here, be sure to smash that like button, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on any future videos, leave a comment down below, and don't forget, hit that subscribe button. And now let's get into another original video here on the Outside the Box Podcast YouTube channel. What is going on, Philadelphia? It is a live edition of the Outside the Box podcast, the official lacrosse podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network. It's KB, Deej, and the boy Chase live in person, a.k.a. the PLL Pipeline. If you're not following him on Instagram and Twitter, what are you doing? Most accurate and up-to-date news, as he said 97.6% of the time. I feel like that needs to go in the Instagram bio.
I said 98. Just to throw that out there.
Nice little roundup.
I'll give myself a little bit of leeway. We'll throw it in there.
We are live at the Premier Zone for PLL Philly here at Villanova University. First regular season stop in Philadelphia for the PLL. Typically, they are at Subaru Park for the championship, and 1 year as the semifinal, but we all know Subaru Park is for crowning a champion. Great venue here at Villanova University, at Villanova Stadium. Premier Zone is bumping. It's Waterdogs homecoming. Game one didn't go the Waterdogs' way, as we are in between game 1 and 2. Goes to overtime, and even though the Waterdogs did not win, one of the best games we have had to start this early season, going down with what happened last week in Carolina with Brennan O'Neill absolutely welcoming himself to the league. We had some awesome action in Albany week 1, but this was a phenomenal game, back and forth, and DJ, I know you tweeted about it. Waterdogs Cannons is the rivalry right now in the PLL.
I mean, the only one that, kind of can compete with it is, Whipsnake's Redwoods.
Mm-hmm.
That started kind of all the rivalry things in the PLL. But when you look at today, the anger, the aggression, the passion, but the skill, all of it comes together into one game, and then you're adding history to that, right?
Yes.
Boston and Philly hate each other just in general.
Can confirm.
It doesn't
confirm.
It doesn't even have to be about sports. You start talking to them about food or about their city or about anything, and it's hate Boston on all systems go, and Boston feels the same way about Philly, and they're just bringing that into the PLL, and you can see it. I don't think they have, completely bought into it yet in terms of, acknowledging the rivalry for what it is and how they have contributed to it. I think that's maybe just because they want to downplay it a little bit and not let the game be more than what it is. But, man, the energy from the teams just spread into the stands.
And, I mean, we saw it for years when he was on the Whipsnakes. Bryce Young versus Michael Sowers. Both of our guys. We love Bryce. We love Michael. It's carried over to Bryce being on the Cannons that when he sees Michael Sowers, it's like a bull seeing red.
Oh, it's on site, and this is a rivalry that already had that physicality element to it. You add in Garrett Epple, who, credit to him, kept in check today. Bryce Young was the one with the penalty minutes, and it almost cost them the game, but those are two guys that are always out there giving it their all, and you add those two to a rivalry that is blooming and already had some bad blood with the way Champ Series ended. It's a surprise it didn't get a little more physical. We had a little bit, but this is definitely the pinnacle of PLL rivalries right now.
And I know, Big Cat from Barstool talked about if the Waterdogs went 2-0 this week and, of course, got into a fight, he would pay for their bar tab, but then followed up that you can't go 1-1 in a weekend unless you go 0-1, which you could also go 1-0, but maybe the bar tab is still on the table for the boys. They have a game tomorrow against the Whipsnakes, which we'll talk about on the actual episode of OTB next week. But, I mean, the atmosphere today, we were talking with Danny Passavoy, friend of the pod, head of ticketing for the PLL. The atmosphere felt like a home game, and obviously we weren't in Charlotte, but from what we saw, the home game vibes were there for chaos. This felt like a Philadelphia sporting event. As somebody who has been to a number of Philadelphia sporting events, you had the Let's Go Dogs chants. You had people remixing the Eagles fight song chant to fit the Waterdogs bill. You had referees getting booed. It felt like a Philly home game for sure.
And, I mean, I brought it up on the pod, which if you haven't seen our episode this week, it's definitely worth the watch. Head on over, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. I brought up how it would actually look because we've talked a little bit about, how the branding of the stadiums goes after we saw things in Albany and what they did with the New York Atlas there. I was really excited for them to come here. I got to see things for what they were down in Carolina from TV, but to be here, I said on the pod this week, the blues would match the purple so well, and I couldn't have been more right. Like, I didn't even think it would look as good as it does. Like, it looks even better than I thought it would. You have to, like, actually see it. Like, I don't know what it looks like on screen, obviously, because I've been watching here.
Right.
But I can't imagine it does the justice that we're seeing here. The purple is vibrant, and it bounces off of the navy blue really well, but it also makes the light blue here pop. So it's really bringing out Villanova, bringing out the Philly roots of this team and of this stadium rather than just being kind of a stadium that got the Philly stuff thrown on top of it.
All I needed was the reaction to – it didn't end up going their way, but the reaction to the goal that sent the game into overtime. I mean, this stadium lit up. It was honestly the best reaction I've seen from a PLL crowd, and that's coming from someone who has a lot of love for Homewood. The Philly competed very well today, and it felt like a home crowd through and through.
And it was an unreal goal. Ryan Conrad, the amount of leaping, in-air, jump, man, whatever you want to call them type goals that the Waterdogs alone had today. I saw Hutton Jackson tweet about it. I think they had 4. Michael Sowers had a few. Kieran had one. Connor Kelly had one, and then Ryan Conrad at the end of the game to send it to overtime. And boys were jumping all over the field, just like the halftime show, which was one of the coolest, if not coolest, halftime shows we have had at a PLL weekend. We had Trick Dogs doing their thing, and one of them I knew looked familiar, and Danny was telling us that they do a bunch of stuff with the Philadelphia Eagles as well. That was such a cool twist and, like, unique aspect to the Waterdogs homecoming, was having something that ties in not only to Philadelphia, but your team branding as your halftime show.
Yeah, I thought that was huge. Like, just to touch on your point with, like, the energy, I think there's only been one game so far that I can recall on in the last 5 years of the PLL that channels that energy, that Waterdogs championship in Philly.
Yes, in 2022.
And then the 2019 Redwoods game in Columbus, when we had the first official, like, let's go A-team chant. It was so loud. You could hear a large majority of the stadium saying, let's go Redwoods. It was loud. It was vibrant. People were into it. You got those vibes here today. When the Waterdogs scored, it was loud. Mm-hmm. People were up. They were waving towels. They were cheering and clapping. And when it wasn't, you heard the boos. When the refs made a bad call, they let them know about it. But you also got the let's go dog chants. You had, when I say there were purple jerseys everywhere. Oh, my God. I was like,
purple,
and I
you
think
had the white, you had the black, you had the throwbacks, you had every Waterdogs jersey, new, old, and in between, under the sun.
And I think I said something to you, like, this is the first time I can say, like, it looks like a home game. Like, sure, you know, you had things going with the Atlas, but the amount of different jerseys we saw so many.
It felt very neutral still.
We saw so many Redwood jerseys there, and they weren't even playing. You know, and so there's that. And then I'm not sure what it looked like down in Carolina because we weren't there, but being here, the number of Waterdogs jerseys far surpasses the number of any other type of gear. Guys are still wearing their college gear here, and there's other pro teams here. The Waterdogs stuff is loud and proud here today, so I thought that was awesome. And then the halftime show, I'm a big fan of the Tykes. I like watching the little Tykes play. It's the future of our sport, but being able to do something that is local to this area and is a Philly thing, I think is where the league should be going. It's a great step in terms of continuing to branch out and get into the markets that you're in. They did good. Yeah. They did great. I mean, watching it made me want to turn my dog into a show dog.
And we were talking about it too, like Philly has that little bit of an advantage, having Michael Sowers as the face of your franchise, being a Philadelphia guy, and you talk about the 2022 championship game. That felt like a Waterdogs home game for a championship, and they really took over the stadium. And when we were in that press box in 2022, we looked at each other and it was like, holy shit, like it was like one of those moments. And to have Michael Sowers here, you heard the pop when they announced him as well. Like Chase and I were walking, I don't know if you saw it. There's a guy who had a Princeton Michael Sowers signed jersey on the front. I was like,
that needs to be hung up.
Yeah, why is that on body? That needs to be in frame, in your man cave, wherever you need it.
Never getting touched.
It just needs to be framed.
Like, your kids can't even breathe on that thing, dude. They can't even look at it.
The Philadelphia ties on this team, from Jake Richard coming here in free agency And, he walks in today, Wawa, no free ads, but shout out Wawa. Wawa cup in hand, Jason Kelsey jersey on, Phillies hat on. He's thrilled to be playing for his hometown team. You look at somebody like Eli Gobrecht, who grew up going to Flyers games, being in Philadelphia for his childhood. You look at somebody like Liam Burns, who for a majority of his professional career has played for a Philadelphia-based team, whether it's the NLL or the PLL, and even the 1 year with the Barrage in the MLL. He's known in Philadelphia for lacrosse, and then you just tie in all the other players that are on this roster. They feel like they're from Philly. We were saying it before the game. It feels like Connor Kelly is a Philly guy, even though he's from Connecticut. Like, the guys on this team just fit the city. They fit that underdog, that gritty, blue-collar type of mentality. And that doesn't even mention somebody like Kieran McCardle, who fits into Philadelphia perfectly. And can we just have a moment for the nastiest duo of Kieran McCardle and Michael Sowers in that game? 3 goals in 48 seconds was some iconic type stuff from those guys.
I mean, yeah, they played fantastic. You could tell that they like playing here. They've mentioned that before. Like, being in Philly is special to the Waterdogs. They like playing here because of all the ties that they have here and and even if you're not from Philly on this Waterdogs team, a lot of these guys live on the East Coast, so right. Philly is close, and their family's here, their friends are here, and it's close to home, so it's an enjoyable experience for them. So I thought that was, another thing that they could really touch on. But going back to that championship game in 2022, I think that is what locked Philly into, or the Waterdogs into Philly, because we talked about it all that season about the Archers possibly being in Philly because all of the ties they had. But then the Waterdogs winning that game and the atmosphere that they had there, and then
even last year in a losing effort, unfortunately for the Waterdogs, down the stretch of that championship game,
there were a lot more Let's Go Waterdogs chants than anything else.
So it was very clear that Philadelphia embraced the Waterdogs, and obviously the Waterdogs have the popularity off the rip from 2020 with the partnership that they had with Barstool and still have, obviously, with Part of My Take. Max, Billy Football were here, Jordy was here, Frank the Tank was here. So to see that connection and have that media empire behind the Waterdogs as well is a huge boost for just the pop culture type of flow with the Waterdogs. We are keeping track this year. We tweeted about it in Albany of the most obscure jerseys that we see every weekend. We want you guys, if you're at a weekend, tweet them at us. We will take photo submissions. We've been picking ones out. I just saw one over here not too long ago. Deej, I don't know if you saw it when you were looking. There's a Chaos Mac O'Keefe jersey.
Yeah, I peeped that.
That is a beautiful piece of PLL memorabilia. We saw some great ones already today. We saw a Cannons Alex Woodall, PLL Cannons Alex Woodall jersey, who I believe played maybe 2 games for the PLL iteration of the Cannons. We had John Piatelli Cannons in Albany.
That one is the craziest.
That is mint.
Now that is the second RP3 Atlas jersey we've seen today.
Might be second today, third on the season.
Yeah.
There are way more of those out in the wild than I expected. And this is an homage to Pat Gallen, who works for CBS 3 in Philly. He does this with the Philadelphia Phillies, which is even funnier because of the history of the Phillies and just the randomness that you see. So we're doing it with the PLL as the league as a whole. There's some teams that are still not on the board. We're still looking for some obscure Redwoods jerseys, some obscure Waterdogs jerseys. We did see a Christian Scarpello, which I'm sure he's going to be thrilled about because
the Scarpellos are always. I feel like every game I come to, the Scarpellos travel.
Yes, and the Witcher family. There is at least 3 Matt Witcher jerseys every weekend, no matter where it is. But send us those obscure jerseys for sure.
I'm just interested, who would be the Woods obscure one? Would it be a Kevin Unterstein?
That would be something.
So somebody who's only played a year and didn't play a bunch and was kind of just I'm trying to think of Kevin Rogers. He didn't play a bunch either. It would be guys like that. But it's so hard because the Woods have been such a traditional team. For the most part, the same 5. If you were there, if you played for the Redwoods, you've played 2, 3, 4 seasons for the Redwoods. So it's not obscure to see your jersey. Or see your name on that jersey because you played for so long.
I think I own the most obscure Redwoods jersey in PLL history.
Yes.
It was a mistake jersey that was sent to me. It is a number 18 Greg Gorenlian jersey.
Oh, yeah, that's.
I was ordering the Gorenlian jersey, but it was with number 18, and I was like, I'll take it. And that bought into my obscure jersey collecting. Like, I have a Chaos Original Miles Jones jersey. I have a Ryan Drenner Waterdogs jersey. I have a Justin Gutterton Chrome jersey. So, like, that's kind of where I get my jersey fix with the PLL, just finding the guys that played, like, 1 or 2 years on a team. Yeah, that is interesting. Who would be the Redwoods? We'll have to think about that for sure.
I'm trying to think back to, like, that 2019 team, Landis.
Yeah.
If you got a Matt Landis Redwoods jersey,
send that our way.
Send it to me. I will frame it, put it up.
Speaking of Matt Landis, I don't know if we saw Matt Landis at the Final Four.
Really?
Yeah.
Just like chilling.
Getting beat by the security sensor.
And we like looked at each other and we were like, is that Matt Landis? And then we looked at each other like, is he going to come play again? And then we realized real quickly that was not happening.
Yeah, it was not happening. Another thing I got to touch on, the K9 crew is out in full force. The Waterdogs League-recognized supporter group, shout out to them. We got a couple of them over here watching the show right now. Their tailgate was lit, and it was with the Sowers family. Like,
were
that
they
was like
leading the charge?
I think they were leading the charge. Like,
yeah, there you go.
Grace came up and was like catching up with us and said, the Waterdogs supporter group and the Sowers family are out tailgating over there. If you want to make your way over there, if you feel necessary. I was like, that's awesome. Reminded me of year 1 championship when the Rambos were throwing their tailgate and that famous clip of Mr. Rambo saying, we got cheesesteaks, we got more cheesesteaks, we got more cheesesteaks. That tailgate was awesome. Like, walking by and seeing how many Waterdogs fans were over there with the supporter group, and we've talked about it a ton. Shout out to Libby Vandal. The supporter group just idea has come to life and has been such a cool new aspect with the home city affiliation. And to see the K9 crew out here in full force, you know, when the Waterdogs are scoring goals, you see the flag out there. You see our guy with the face paint who's been a Waterdogs fan since day one. Like, they have been out in full force, and shout out to them because they popped out and showed them.
I mean, honestly, outside of the Atlas, which, like, I just didn't see them. I don't think that they weren't there. The appearance of these supporter groups has been so large. Like, if you watched at all last week on TV, whether you were there or not, they showcased, you know, the Red Legion a handful of times, and they were active. They were going. Of course, Michael Harrison, our guy, was in front with the drum doing his thing right next to, what's his face? Carolina Reaper.
Yes.
Carolina Reaper and Mike were right in front leading the charge, but everybody behind them was active. They were standing the entire time. They were cheering, and they brought that energy. You saw the same thing today, right behind the bench, which I can imagine was fun for the Waterdogs. Because to one, hear the cheers, see them,
especially
get that
when
interaction.
Scored when the Kieran and Michael Sowers, you know, slew of goals were going on.
Yeah.
Like, that had to, in and of itself, just motivate them and push them to tie the game, to send it to overtime.
Yep.
That's a great point.
And then I can't imagine they were quiet.
Right.
Because I remember them last year playing in Columbus when we were doing a live pod, absolutely giving it.
Shout out to Ben Randall and his family.
I believe to the Cannons bench.
Yes.
Last year this time, they were absolutely giving it to him behind the bench. It was Atlas. You're right.
Because that was that game where they came back to win 1918.
When Connor Kelly just went nuclear. Yeah.
So, and Ben Randall's, like, 75 members of his friends and family were just talking the utmost shit.
6'5" and can't save shit.
To Jack Buchanan.
Like, just ripping this dude. So I'd imagine the same thing was going on today. Dylan Ward, 6'6", can't save shit. Like, just giving it to him. And I just imagine it was great. Well, I guess not Dylan Ward. They're probably asking
they
for
might
him
have
to
been
play
doing it early on.
Yeah, probably trying to get in his head and get him going.
They were probably saying it to Kirsty.
Yeah, they were probably getting at Kirsty, getting at Bryce Young for hating Short Kings and being the way that he is.
We need to get to the bottom of
we
that
have
because
to.
it is still continuing.
We have to.
There's something in the water with those two.
He got
well,
a little bold.
It's not those two. It's Bryce.
It's anybody that's 5'9" and below.
Bryce does not like short guys.
He turns into a raging, like, fiend.
Because was it Chris Gray that he absolutely just demolished last year?
It's been Michael Sowers, obviously. Chris Gray, Grant Ament, Ryder. If you are below 5'10", which Bryce got a little bold today. Step 2 Kieran McCardle in those little
like
skirmishes. Kieran's 6'2", and he's a built 6'2". Like he's ready to scrap because you know Kieran does not like that team. At all.
Kieran's the one that's always backing up everyone.
Oh yeah.
If you're going down,
Kieran's ready
the first
to come.
one. That's Captain McCardle.
Yes.
And you know what? I think I'm scared for the time that someone swings on Kieran.
Woo!
Not because of what he's going to do back, but because of what everybody else is going to do.
somebody's soul will leave their body.
When your leader steps up for you all the time, and then somebody does something to them, it just ignites that need to respond. I'm sure it's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so scared for that day, because that will be the day that, like, a real brawl breaks out. Like, sure, we got 2019 with Ocello and Blaze, but that would be so much worse. So much worse.
But again, great atmosphere. Shout out to everybody that popped out for the Waterdogs game. And I think, we experienced it last year in Columbus when we did our first live show, and the time in between the games, seeing just how that played out. And it wasn't terrible in Columbus with, like, the turnaround and people coming back. This place is packed right now. In the Premier Zone alone, there's probably people who, left, came back, did whatever they had to do. Tonight's going to be awesome as well, because you talk about, sure, it's a Waterdogs homecoming weekend. It's majority Waterdogs fans here. The Philly connections in this next game tonight between Chaos and the Archers are just as strong, from Grant Ament to Mac O'Keefe playing at Penn State to Ryan Ambler to every member of the Archers coaching staff being from Philly. Then you look at the Chaos roster: Austin Kaut, Delco guy, Pat Resch. Blaze Reardon has made Philadelphia his home. The amount of Philly guys in this matchup, Mike Sisselberger went to Lehigh, not too far away from here, and he's from there. Like, there's a lot of just Philadelphia player connections that I think a lot of the Waterdogs fans probably know these guys one way or another, root for these guys one way or another, especially if, you have guys that are fans of Blaze Reardon, obviously. Even though he's probably not playing this game, he's still going to be out there. People are going to be, trying to get his attention. The Philly ties run deep in the PLL.
I mean, extremely deep. There's so many guys across the league, across all the different teams that have ties to Philly or have played college ball here or have great, like Bill Tierney, for example, has ties to Philly, not like straight directly, but when you play at Denver, you play in the Big East. Who do you play in the Big East? Villanova. He brought it up in the presser, kind of being here and getting cheered for while here. He's like, that's a different feeling. At Denver, you don't get cheered for here. Mm-hmm. You get booed. They don't want to see you in here. They don't want you beating them by 10 every time you come in here, but you do. Mm-hmm. So, everybody across the league, not everybody, but a large majority of the league has ties here in some way that, gives them a special feeling when they're here in Philadelphia. It's a great city, man. I absolutely love it.
It's been awesome so far. Another thing I want to bring up from the first game, we had a PLL debut, a rookie debut for the Waterdogs, Marcus Hudgens. We were talking about in the press box. That was one of the more impressive rookie debuts in the PLL that we have seen in recent memory. To jump right in week 3 and play as well as he did, to play to his guy, to his matchup as well as he did throughout that entire game. I was thoroughly impressed with Marcus Hudgens today.
Well, I think a lot of Waterdogs fans are waiting for the Brower appearance, but with his injury, it gave space for Hudgens to come in, and there was a time in I believe the first or second quarter that Matt Cavanaugh got the best of him. But after that, he was fantastic. He was locking down. Ground balls were fantastic. Even in transition, he didn't get a goal or anything, but just moving the ball quickly to the offense. And he was a huge reason that not only the Waterdogs were able to come back in the second half, but it was on both sides. They shut them down to 1 goal apiece.
Yeah, and I don't even think Cavanaugh even really got the best of him there. I think it was just a matter of he played it defensively right, give him the under and then try and cut him off. But he just got a nice shot off, and it went close side on this left side on Dylan, which, like, most of the times that close side shot isn't going. So I thought Marcus played a phenomenal game. Shout out to the man Brian Noslak. Shout out Matt Shaler.
Shout out Pacino Stan 88.
Right, they gave me all kind of talk about Marcus and stuff when I started tweeting about him. They love their Hughes guys, but seriously, Marcus is the real deal. I kind of knew that already, being a Michigan fan. We saw him twice for the last 2 years. And I know once during the regular season, once in the playoffs, and he was great. Like, when I say great, I mean he almost took Mikey Boehm completely out of the game twice. That's hard. There's a reason Mikey Boehm got drafted. Everybody didn't get drafted this year, by the way, including Peyton Cormier. Everybody didn't get drafted this year, including Peyton Cormier. So for Boehm to have gotten drafted and for Marcus to have shut him down consistently over the last couple of years should tell you how good this guy is. Because I'm going to say it, outside of faceoff, I think attack is the hardest way to get your bills here in the PLL.
Oh, 100%. There's so many attackmen that are playing out of position at
and
the
I mean,
midfield.
not even just getting drafted as an attackman is hard,
yes.
let alone, this year was kind of an anomaly because of how good this offensive draft was. But when you look back at the other 4, you got to be the cream of the crop as an attackman to get your spot because everybody's already got 3 plus 2, 3 more running midfield.
Well, we talk about these 2 teams coming up. Utah, Mac O'Keefe played midi for Chaos. Connor Fields was stuck in midfield for a while. Grant Amen is now playing midfield. And then on Carolina, you got Jules that is playing attack. Minikis is now back up at midfield. There is only so many midfield spots, and you can say the same about face-off goalie. One last thing on Hudgens. He was playing on both Kavanaughs. And that third quarter, he was on Pat, and I don't think Pat got the best of him at all. Yeah, he was an eraser, and he did his job because Ben Randall had the physical matchup with Knowlton.
And I thought he did a great job against Asher as well. That was
phenomenal.
Beautiful defense.
We haven't even mentioned Zach Tucci was the leading scorer for the Cannons.
Insane.
Somebody's got to search up. I don't think that's ever happened.
Yeah, I don't. Because the only person I think realistically that could have ever done it would have been Trevor, and Trevor's not going to lead the Atlas in scoring when, for the majority of their combined careers, Jeff Teet's been on that roster. You've had guys like Eric Law on that roster.
Rob Pennell,
Paul
Rabel.
The list goes on and on since Trevor's been in the PLL that he's realistically the only other guy that could have even sniffed that. But to have Zach Tucci, who, mind you, was on this Waterdogs team a year ago, in theory.
Got benched pretty much for James Riley.
Yeah, and then got benched for Eli Gobrecht.
Yeah, and then they completely went away from it. And 4 points. He didn't have a goal coming into today. Played 5 games in his career. Had 1 assist, and he was phenomenal. And say what you want about, they're playing Zach Courier, so it's not a real face-off matchup. Zach Courier still gave him the works, as much as he could defensively.
And still won a couple of those face-offs, too.
Exactly. And Zach Tucci was able to make the most of it and put the game away literally in overtime. It put the game in his hands, and just one of the best face-off performances, and that's with all the great face-off athletes in this league. One of the best face-off performances I've seen in the PLL.
What's the name on the back of this 22 jersey right here?
Let's see.
Because 1,000 people have worn 22 at Syracuse, so it's not like it could be an easy choice.
Watch it. Might not be a last name.
Facts. It might just be empty.
Yeah. Well, now we're going to have to wait and see.
We're going to figure that out. We're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we'll talk more dogs. We'll talk a little bit of this night game, and then we will keep it pushing. We might have some guests popping on potentially, so stick around. We'll be right back. All right, and we're back here in the Premier Zone from PLL Philly, Week 3 of 2024 season. Like we mentioned, first regular season weekend for the PLL in Philadelphia. The Premier Zone is bumping. I got to say, this is one of the better Premier Zone setups we've had in PLL history, in my opinion.
I was going to say, I think to an extent the PLL does too good of a job with the Premier Zone because you got people online saying, there's not the stands aren't filled. Well, they sold out. Everyone's in the Premier Zone having a grand old time.
Bar down is back.
Down. PLL does just a great job at giving it. Not only do you have the lacrosse game to go to and experience and have fun, but for some of these people, not today, but it's 2 games in a row. Sometimes there's a little bit of a lull. There is plenty of options.
It's an event.
Oh, 100%. And shout out, we've talked to plenty of staff members about what they've done in terms of getting this place ready for Philadelphia. This is not an easy thing to just pack up every week and go to a new stadium. And Villanova, they haven't been here before. So to get that done and to put on a show like this, a lot goes in behind the scenes. And again, they might be doing too good of a job.
And the branding, we haven't really touched on it for the Waterdogs per se, but the branding around the stadium looks absolutely gorgeous. The purple is popping everywhere. The little details that you see on some of the logos now, like the banner out front that has the sideways facing dog that you see on the white helmet for the Waterdogs this year. I don't even think I noticed it off rip until I saw it all blown up and in my face. The freckle marks are in the shape of the Keystone logo that is on the collar, and obviously this is the Keystone State, so that's a cool subtle detail on that version of the logo. You have the 2022 PLL Champions banner going across the field. It looks absolutely gorgeous, and we were in Albany Deej. The hill was painted with the Atlas NY logo, and the Atlas flags were flying. They have done such a great job making it feel like it is that team's specific home weekend through and through. And for this to be the first time that they're doing that, obviously, it's super impressive to see how it all unfolds. And shout out to Danny Passavoy again. He's part of making that happen. But it is really awesome to see how, for years, we've seen the PLL go to, hey, this is a league type of event. You know, it's league branding everywhere. You see the PLL shield everywhere. To now, like, you feel like you are at a home game for a specific team, as we have an Archers orange, neon orange Will Manny jersey.
I don't think that one's too off, though. He played there for a few years.
Yeah.
But speaking on, like, the home thing, like, I'm jealous.
You'll get there.
But, like, it's also, like, an eye-opening thing for me and, like, really exciting is, like, I don't think, like, now that, like, I'm sitting here and seeing how these home markets are rolling out, I do not know that they would have been able to accurately do a Midwest home based off of, like, the lack of knowledge they have about Midwest and its lacrosse ties and how things work there. And, like, not that they, like, don't know it all, but, like, there isn't a lot of history there. There isn't a lot going on. It's still growing. So, you know, the small things like the Keystone State or, you know, the colors or, you know, guys being tied to the cities. I'm trying to think of, like, some of the other, like, small, like, nuanced things we've seen.
I mean,
with some of
the
the
Atlas
teams
having their own unique NY logo.
Yeah, you know, it's stuff like that. Like, I don't know how they would have done it for the Midwest, but it does make me extremely excited for when they do bring a team to the Midwest. Like, I don't know if it's going to be Columbus or Chicago or if it's just going to be Midwest, like whatever, but when they do that, they bring a team in and they brand it, it's going to be fantastic, and we're all going to love it. It's going to have – I kind of hope it's Midwest and they find a way to kind of highlight small parts of all the states that they're going to group into that, right? Like, say they put it in, like, Kentucky and Louisville. Okay, you have something for Louisville. You have something for Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, Ohio. I would love that. But I doubt that's what's going to happen, but I would say Midwest fans, let's continue to hang a little tight. I know it sucks. I know we're, like, jealous of what we're seeing out and about, but realistically, they're just trying to do right by us as lacrosse fans in the Midwest area.
And they're just scratching the surface on what they're going to be capable of moving forward.
Yeah, and I think the odd end areas like the Midwest are where they're really going to shine, you know, where you need to have the special things to bring out the random person. It's going to be a lot harder to get butts and seats in the Midwest because it's not as big as football, not as big as hockey, not as big as wrestling. You know, even basketball is still pretty high when you look at Illinois and Indiana. So it's still going to take some of those nuanced things that you don't have in other places to get things going, and that's what the PLL focuses on. So I would say hang tight for a little bit. It's going to suck for the next couple of years as we continue to be jealous of everybody around us getting these opportunities. But when they come, it is going to be blockbuster. We're going to love it, and I would argue that that's going to be the best home city, home market, regardless of whoever else is around. Sure, these 8 teams have been locked in already and are going to have a couple years under their belt. That won't matter.
And it'll be fresh for you.
We know how good the Midwest is. Everything that we step into, we're better than. We're better than everybody else around us when we step into it. So this is going to be no different. When we get a home market, it's going to be better than Philly. It's going to be better than Maryland. Going to be better than Utah. Going to be better than Boston. Just be patient.
And I'm noticing a jersey. I don't know if they're still over there. But
if you didn't mention it, there's that one's Schreiber. I think the other Archers one is just a number 2, and I can't think who's worn number 2 for the Archers. Might be a cousin.
Ratliff?
Oh, yeah, it's Scott Ratliff.
Yeah.
Friend of the program. But I did see.
On me.
It is weird. Obviously, Michael Sowers is the face of the team, so you're going to see a ton of Michael Sowers here. I did see a Zach Courier Waterdogs jersey.
Signed.
Right there.
Signed,
That's
too.
pretty sweet.
That
is an underrated jersey.
Matter of fact, I need that.
That's an underrated jersey.
As a Calgary Roughnecks fan and a second home in Philadelphia, I need a signed Zach Courier jersey. So if anybody out there wants to make that happen for me, the vault is open. I'm not going to say that it'd be cheap, but if you want to, make me a happy man, the offer is out there.
Speaking of Zach Courier, our guy, one of our white whales to have on the pod and face-off king, Jerry Raganese, was tweeting about, using Zach Courier and how using him at the face-off stripe diminishes what he's able to do, and you're running the tread on his tires more and more the more you throw him out at the stripe. Obviously, we had Coach Tierney tell us that Alex Stathakis is finishing his master's degree. Hopefully he's back from Minnesota, especially after, 2 one-goal losses that you look at the results, and if you had, maybe a couple of those possessions that the Cannons or the Archers were able to get in your 2 games so far, you maybe win those games. And you look at the stats across the board, you look at the box score without the final score, you probably say the Waterdogs won those games based off of some of those stats that are showing there. It is tough, from the aspect of we know how good Zach Currier is, how much of, Ian McKay gets talked about as the Swiss Army machete. Zach Currier originated that position, in my opinion, to see everything that he is capable of doing out on a lacrosse field and how just multidimensional his game is. To be throwing him at the stripe, it's getting him more tired. It's wearing down his body that much more for a game. And in a weekend where you have 2 games, I'm low-key a little nervous, not overly nervous, but I'm a little nervous to see the performance we get from Zach Currier in Sunday's game against the Whip Snakes. And hopefully, he's not too run down. But I do agree, the more and more that the Waterdogs continue to throw him out at the stripe, and hopefully it comes to a halt soon, the more and more you're wasting what Zach Currier is truly good at and what he can provide to your team as a 2-way midfielder.
My only problem with, what's going on is that they didn't go get an actual face-off guy knowing what's going on with Stathakis. What makes me more upset about that is Tierney knows exactly how long his school year is because he coached there forever.
As did Dylan Sheridan, the offensive coordinator.
Go get someone at Naso, Wheatfeld, Riley, Cole,
Connor Farrell.
There's 1,000 names out there. Well, I was thinking even before the season started.
Mm-hmm.
Farrell wasn't necessarily available, but he is now. There's 1,000 face-off names out there for you to go and grab for 3 weeks, and then you can kick them to the curb and put Stathakis on the roster because no one's going to take Stathakis. The only person who might have done it would have been Holman, but then Holman's like, I love Tucci.
Mm-hmm.
And when I called him, he was ready for it, so cool, I'm locked in.
I think Tucci has forced his hand now with that performance. I think, of course, as fans, we want to see Zach Currier as his best, and I think that is, of course, on both ends. And at the face-off stripe, he's just limited that way. But if you're Coach Tierney, I understand where he's coming from as well because it's 2 one-point losses, and you hope moving forward that you can change the outcome of those. But, again, this is a team that has always been known for slow starts. We've seen that time and time again. And tomorrow they cannot afford to have a slow start because the second half, talking about tread, tires are going to start to feel a little weak.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to need a Zach Currier. And we were talking before the show, this is a midfield group that has so much talent that it's a little bit of a problem because you don't necessarily know how to manage it. And now you got Brandow that's also converted attackman playing midfield. It's just you've got still a lot of questions. It's not time to hit the panic button, nowhere close.
No.
But, again, the question is always going to come up if you continue to play Zach Currier at the stripe. Are you limiting what he's able to do? And I think a lot of people will tell you yes.
Yeah, I mean, Diggs tweeted, he said, when is Tierney going to end this madness?
Okay, let me just next week we're on a bye week. Mm-hmm. Stathakis is done with school this week. He should be back in Minnesota. Done and over with. That's it. They get their face-off guy back. Zach Currier goes back to being himself, and everybody can relax.
And I do agree with Chase's point, though, when it comes to even just training camp. The fact that they only brought Stathakis to training camp, looking at it now, kind of a red. Because going into training camp, we didn't know Stathakis was, going back to school or anything. So I was like, cool, he's going to be the guy on the roster. That's Tierney's guy, blah, blah, blah. It's also kind of weird that you didn't bring another guy to just have that camp battle and just have your own notes, film, whatever it may be, on another guy to just have in your back pocket.
Brain blast. He didn't do that because he knew he wasn't bringing in a face-off guy, and he wanted Zach Currier to be his competition so Currier could figure out what he was going to do for the first 3 weeks.
Obviously.
Oh, my God.
But do you want
not smart. In my opinion, not smart.
Not smart at all.
But that's what he did.
Do you want a rookie?
And I'm looking at like the Andy Towers school. If we want film on every single guy on our roster, at least give yourself an advantage where you have an expanded training camp roster. It's like, okay, let's put another guy in our back pocket. say an injury happens. You have no idea what some of these guys are capable of because you have never seen them play for you the way that you want to use the face-off. It did feel like kind of a misstep bringing a guy and knowing his status going into the season was going to be up in the air and was going to be delayed to get onto your roster. But,
also they have a very talented midfield group. It's going to be hard to cut those guys out the roster. They also have one of the deepest short stick teammate groups in the league. Like Jake Higgins, Charlie Hayes, those guys aren't getting played every week. Right now it's Scarpello, Witcher, and Richard.
And Higgy's out.
Exactly. So
an unknown amount of time.
It's a very deep group, and to take one of those guys out, put in a face-off specialist. Again, there's a million angles to this. We'll see after this break if Stathakis comes back. But again, I would have loved to see some competition and see it. Like, I love what Coach Holman has done. He realized that they could not be pigeonholed into playing one way and winning one way. He knew that wasn't. He wanted to experiment. And it has worked out probably the best it could have with Zach Tucci becoming immediately an important factor. He's the reason they won the game today. So, again, just you got the leeway a little bit with the training camp rosters, bring in another guy, but we'll see what Stathakis coming in.
And I will say, I think, even though they've lost both games so far this year, it's been in the best possible way to lose by only one goal, with score differential being as important as it is in terms of like seeding and everything.
We are not a moral victory podcast.
I know we're not. But
just making sure.
If you're going to take away anything, you're not getting blown out in these games.
Hey, I was just making sure that you weren't trying to go down the moral victory route.
No,
that's all.
It's a positive that you're not getting blown out. So it is clear that like this is a fixable issue. And in terms of the standings and in terms of your score differential, it's not getting demolished like we've seen from some teams in the past.
Got more serious problems than this team ever.
This team doesn't have any problems.
No.
But your biggest thing tomorrow for the Waterdogs against the Whipsnakes is the Whipsnakes are just as hungry as you to get their first win.
Well,
and you're going up against a team who has a skilled face-off athlete. Obviously, Nards is still working his way back, to full health and everything. He got banged up during the NLL season and went deep into the NLL season with Albany. But, we'll see how that plays out. And obviously, the Waterdogs have played a game already. We've seen 2 of the 4 possible scenarios for homecoming teams. We've seen a sweep. We've seen a Game 1 win and a Game 2 loss. We've now seen a Game 1 loss. Do we see a Game 2 win? Hopefully for the Waterdogs' sake and Philadelphia fans' sake, they don't get swept at home. But those are the only other 2 outcomes we have not seen. It's going to be interesting because Chase and I have been talking about the Whipsnakes, and Chase brought up a point. I brought it up to you on the pod this week. Like, he said that the Whipsnakes, just the way that they're operating, it reminds him of the 2023 Redwoods.
It's to me, it's the midfield group. This is. Oh, I got
take a big pause.
DJ Ralph.
I know. Just take a big pause though, because no, they're different.
Well,
they're different.
It's different in terms of personnel in the way that you've got an attack group that is very loaded with talent, kind of having to put the offense on its shoulders versus a midfield group that's struggling to put things together. And I know that was a conversation throughout the season. Finally, Cole Kurtz got some playing time, and we started to see a big come-up. The Whipsnakes are a different situation because you've got a handful of guys that are injured. You just made the trade for Levi Anderson, who's going to come over. I think there's plenty of ways this can be fixed. The problem is right now you got guys playing out of position in terms of short stick DMAs taking offensive runs, and you got attackmen at the midfield as well.
But I don't even think that's their issue. I think their issue is they don't have a true leader this year. Losing Earhart, who's been your captain and leader for 5 years, you got to have somebody ready to take that step and just fill his shoes. And obviously we're not talking on-field shoes because those are impossible shoes to fill. We even talked to Stags about that last week or 2 weeks ago about, what he expects from his midfielders. And the first thing he said was, I don't expect them to be Michael Earhart as far as my LSMs.
He just loves Michael Earhart,
He does. Yeah. But when you look at it in the way he plays, nobody's going to be Michael Earhart ever again. So it isn't about the on-field stuff. It's the off-field. The guy who can go and settle anybody down, the guy who always has the right thing to say, the guy who always leads by example. That was Earhart. And they don't have that now, and nobody has stepped into that role. And you can see it when they start losing in games. There isn't that guy that's like, yo, chill out, we're good, pick your head up, let's keep balling. Or there isn't that guy that goes out and makes some crazy play and hypes the rest of the team up. that piece is what's really missing. But I also think it's more of a the only difference between this Whipsnakes team and the Redwoods team is this Whipsnakes team is still about moving the ball. They move the ball more than that 2023 Redwoods offense does, and that's still a little bit of the Redwoods offense problem this year. It's too dodge dominant. I'm sorry, when you look across the league, the defenders are way too good to be dodge dominant. Whether it's a midfielder or these are some of the best short stick D mid lineups we've ever seen in our lives. LSMs are great, D-pulls are great. Of course you're going to have guys like Josh Byrne, Connor Fields, Garnsey, Sowers who beats their matchup on a regular. But that's not happening every time. And for the Redwoods to be a team where you move it to Rob, he dodges. Okay, nothing there. Move it to Ryder, he dodges. Nothing there. It seems like every time they pass, they dodge. It's not it, man. Pass, 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 dodge. Pass, pass, dodge. Pass, pass, shot. That's the kind of stuff you're looking for, and that's what the Whipsnakes still do. So I think Levi Anderson coming in.
They can afford to do it more, though.
Yeah, 100% they can afford to do it more, but they're already doing it more than what that Redwoods.
Especially we were talking about before on the inside. That's just a
That's a big piece that they're missing too. They need somebody inside. Not that there's never anybody in there, but they're not moving a lot.
You know
they're not
who
commanding
I would love
attention.
to see back? Juicy J. Carlson. That's a guy
front of the program. Shout out
that the Whipsnakes would love to have right now.
I 100% agree. Speaking of guys, we've seen now 2 weeks in a row the home team using that 21-man roster that they have. Does anybody get swapped out for Mikey Boehm or Charlie Hayes for tomorrow?
I think it'll depend on how the guys are feeling, obviously, after today. I mean,
both have been both the previous weeks have been due to injury or just getting beat up. I think this might be the first week you see someone get switched out just based on performance because there were a couple guys that, it was the McCardle and Sauer show, which worked. They almost won the game, but you need some of those other guys to step up. I think you just got to experiment more. We talked about it with Andy Towers. He's the best at doing that, experimenting with lineups, and especially in the early season when you still have such a long road ahead. Now is the time to fit some guys in and see if they squeeze into the lineup.
Try Boehm over Brandow.
That's what I was going to bring up. Boehm over Brandow is a serious possibility. You see it happening with the Woods defense. They're switching guys in and out all the time in terms of trying to see what group of three is going to work best down there. So they're really – you see a lot of teams take advantage of this early season where everybody's trying to figure it out. I think the first 4 weeks, that's your prime. By week 5, you want to be knowing exactly who you're putting out, when you're going to put them out there, why you're putting them out there, because – weeks 5 through 10, you got to win.
Especially with the conference.
That's when it starts getting tight in terms of playoff seeding. You got to have everything figured out by game 5, and you got to be winning those games.
A few more fun jerseys I just spotted. We have an Indigenous Heritage Jack Kincannon jersey and a number 4 Atlas Chris Gray jersey. T's and P's to that young man.
And is that no, because Vardaro went to Georgetown. A Penn 19. Jersey shirt there.
Graduating class jersey?
No, I'm trying to think of who's been to Penn recently other than Sam Hanley that would come across my head.
Those guys, Sam Hanley?
Hey, I'm just saying,
who's
bro.
Who's this guy, Sam Hanley?
Just saying.
That clip will never not be funny.
Hey, no, but after he should have tweeted that after week 1 at Albany when he finally kind of had his game.
Oh, yeah.
He should have been like, hey, who's this dude, Sam Hanley? You know Sam Hanley? I don't know Sam Hanley.
Tonight's matchup, one of those matchups that DJ and I dubbed a rivalry from the jump. It's the Carolina Chaos, the Utah Archers. A lot of Philly connections. Going to be some fireworks.
Not from the jump. It was 21.
Yeah, I mean.
That was because I had went out there.
That
was a sad day.
It was a catalyst of the Ian McKay and Connor Fields trade happening, and everyone bolstering that up to be the Connor Fields trade. That trade has worked out magnificently for both teams.
And they played 3 times that year.
And then it sparked from Andy Towers saying, hey, score differential matters. We're going to go and score goals at the end of the game. It doesn't matter what the score is.
Yep.
Archers didn't like that, and it has gone off ever since. It was part of the 2.1% or 2.3%. No, 3.2%.
3.2. That was 2021.
Third time's a charm.
That is the reason why I'll never go back to Salt Lake City. I feel like everything bad happened there. No, not really. But that was K18's last game. The Redwoods lost to the Whipsnakes that game. The Archers Chaos game was absolutely fantastic, and I think it was Atlas. Who's the other team? Whipsnakes? No, not Whips. Chrome. No,
it was Waterdogs.
Waterdogs.
Chrome wasn't in the playoffs.
Yeah, because Chrome wasn't in the
Because
playoffs.
Waterdogs beat Atlas because Atlas finished #1 in the league that year, and then the Waterdogs lost to the Whipsnakes.
Yep. And then the Whips played
Chaos
for the championship.
Yep. This game is always filled, with fireworks. It's physical. It's fun. They always score a metric shit ton of goals. Andy Towers versus Chris Bates is one of the more fun coaching chess matches we get on a PLL season basis. I'm very excited for this game. Going to be under the lights by the time halftime rolls around, which will be really awesome. But shout out to Philadelphia for showing out and showing the PLL that, hey, we can do this in the regular season just as much as we do for a championship game. Shout out to the Waterdogs, and big shout out to our guy Marley, Danny Passavoy, Grace Hamilton, and Mike and Paul Rabel for allowing us to run it back turbo and do OTB live from the Premier Zone for a second straight year.
Why does Chris Gray's name on the back of that jersey purple?
They had that weird navy blue purple coloration.
Well, yeah,
for
I
the jersey
remember,
last
but
year.
were the names purple on those?
Champ Series.
It was a Champ Series jersey.
Okay. That makes more sense. I'm like, I don't remember their game jerseys having that purple on
it got lost in the wash.
Yeah, I wonder why. No.
Shout out to Chrome, T's and P's. Shout out to CFO Margie on the 1s and 2s on the camera, crutches and all. Make sure you guys are following us on the socials at OTB LaxPod across the board. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook, all at OTB LaxPod. Follow Chase at the PLL Pipeline on Instagram and Twitter. Follow Deej on Twitter at SCS_NextGreat. You can follow me on Twitter at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Outside the Box or Underground Sports Philadelphia. It will pop up in your podcast app of choice. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@undergroundsportsphiladelphia and youtube.com/@OTB LaxPod. That is where you get all of the content for this show, all the content on our network. And we are pumped to be here at PLL Philly. And this has been another OTB Live from the Philadelphia Premier Zone for PLL Philly at Villanova University. For Chase, for Deej, for CFO Margie, I'm KB. Shout out to the PLL. And let's have ourselves a banging rest of the weekend, boys. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace.